What up, guys? I'll keep the intro short today as I have a lot to speak about, but I'm back for the third video of this segment known as Number 1 LOBA's Gold Rank Guide. Let's get it. Bam ba bam 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 ba bam 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 ba bam 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 ba bam bam. Alright, before we get started, as you guys can see on the video on your screen, this is not my account. And there's nothing to worry about. I simply hit up my friend so that I could play on his account so I can get some gold footage for you guys. I felt like it was a little better to actually give you guys gold gameplay to show you guys what I'm talking about as opposed to just referencing it without anything to actually look at. I'm just looking out for all my visual learners out there. Either way, let's give you guys some gold tips. In my previous videos, I told you that you should focus your efforts in bronze and silver lobbies on things such as, your accuracy, your movement, figuring out what characters are best for you, what role you fit in on the team, etc., etc. Now that you're in gold, you'll find that the lobbies are a lot more intense than the previous two ranks. So assuming that you worked on the things that I told you to work on when you were in silver and bronze, for gold, it's time to put all of that stuff together. Starting with the most basic idea yet, playing with your team. That's my tip number 1 for gold lobbies. It's time to start learning how to play with your team. This must be easier said than done, because if it was actually this easy, I wouldn't have to keep repeating myself over and over again. So when you hit that gold rank and you find a lot more people are 3 stacking or duo stacking with pre-made squads as opposed to the previous solo queuers and silvers and bronze, hopefully you'll remember that I told you to start playing with your team, whether you're solo queuing or not. Ideally, naturally, somebody on that team will take the role of the leader. And it is your job as the non-leader to listen to the leader's callouts, their communications, pretty much listen to anything they tell you to do. And if you're a solo queuer, learn how to take control of the team instead of landing by yourself. Because there are so many people that tell me their heart's stuck whatever rank because they solo queue. And I know that it's difficult and that has to be true, but how many times have I seen solo queuers go off and land by themselves in the middle of the map 30 miles away from their team and end up dying for it and costing their entire team the game? I'm spending a lot of time on the subject because clearly this is a difficult task. You must play with your team even if you're solo queuing or not, and gold is the rank that you have to start practicing this. I don't care if your teammates wait to the end of the dropship for them to jump out because they're too busy rolling the blunt or they're watching TikTok and they're not paying attention. You have to wait there for them and land with them wherever they go if you're not jump master. Again, this video is for those that are hard stuck in gold and are looking to rank up through platinum. A player like myself doesn't have to do that. But players that are actually struggling in these ranks, you must do what you can to win RP. And you'll do that by playing with your team, even if they're good or bad. Again, this may be a little skewed for my solo queuers out there, but I'm really trying to help you guys out. Don't be afraid to communicate with your team as well. Like I said before, if you are solo queuing, more often than not, you're going to have to take that leadership role. Whether you're a solo queuer or not, listening to this advice should help you gain more RP, because people in gold lobbies really do struggle with playing with their team. So obviously, if you play with your team, naturally you'll have the advantage in most of your fights. My second tip is for you to continue to be aggressive in these gold lobbies. I know I just spent a lot of time saying play with your team, but you can still play with your team and be aggressive at the same time. You just have to communicate that with them. I've already talked about this in my previous 2 rank guide videos, but gold is pretty much the last lobby where I want you to focus your efforts on being aggressive and working on your combat skills as opposed to rotating. You'll get plenty of practice with rotating in platinum. So for right now, be aggressive and continue that aggressiveness. But when I say be aggressive, it's not just blindly int into that team. Int pretty much refers to just like aping a team. And if you don't know what aping means just like rushing a team as hard as you can, beelining straight towards them. It's not necessarily meaning to do that, but there's this balance between being passive and being aggressive. And if you can perfect that, I know that you guys will gain RP very easily. Just to give you guys some tips on that, when I say passive aggressive, I mean being aggressive in certain situations where it benefits you. Like in a situation where you're pulling up on a third party and you see that they have a couple knocks, you want to fully ape that as hard as you can to clean up those kills and get you some KP or kill points. Or in another circumstance, if you're fighting a team 3v3 and you have a guy knocked, Most of the time, unless they start spamming their ults and Gibby Bub Res or something, most of the time you should be aping them because 3 is always greater than 2, and you have the significant advantage in that moment right there. So that's another circumstance where you'll need to get very aggressive. Another moment where you should get aggressive in these gold lobbies is when you could tell that you have a lot better loot than the opposing team. As if you guys have all purple armor and when you're shooting at them they all have white, be aggressive in that situation. You have the advantage. But also, like I said, there's a balance of being aggressive and passive in these lobbies and in higher rank lobbies as well. Some moments that you should be passive in is when you're fighting a team and you can sniff out that there's a third party. You kind of want to back away and gradually distance yourself from that engagement now. Another example, maybe you're the one that got a teammate knocked and now it's a 3v2 situation and you can feel the enemy team rushing you. You kind of want to play passive in that sense. Back up, fall back, find some new angles, try to catch one of them off guard, or just completely run away from that fight. Again, just like my first tip that I gave you, it's a lot easier said than done, but once you can figure out that balance between being passive and aggressive, farming RP will be so much easier for you guys. Take some time to really listen to what I'm saying and practice that stuff. The third tip that I can discuss for gold lobbies will be landing spots. I really enjoy places like Cenote Cave, Fish Farm, and the Mill for you gold rank players. They're pretty uncontested and they have great loot, and sometimes they are contested just like with any place, but like I said earlier, I want you guys to start forcing fights a little more. Don't overwhelm yourself with fights, but begin to get comfortable with them. And I think these places of interest are good landing spots for you to try out if you're stuck in gold ranked. By gold ranked, you should know already the kind of player that you are on the team. It should not be any later than gold that you figure this information out. I break down roles into 3 separate categories: the in-game leader or IGL, the fragger, or support. Each role has their own duties, and it is important for you to know your role on the team so you can uphold your respective duties. Most of the time that I see 3 stacks that are stuck in gold, it's because they don't know their role on the team, and there's always some confusion on who's supposed to do what. So figuring this information out early on will help benefit you and your team for later ranks. Let's begin with the first one, in-game leader. If you are the in-game leader, you are the person that is calling the shots. You are the facilitator of the team. You are the person that draws up the plays and helps your team execute them. The IGL should be the most vocal on the team and should be very communicative. If anybody wants to know what a good IGL looks like, go check out Imperial Hal on TSM, just to give you an idea of what it should look like. If you are an IGL and you're wondering who you should play, well, you can kind of get away with playing any legend, because the IGL could take the shape of either the support or the fragger. It doesn't really matter. It's whatever best suits your playstyle. For the second role, we have fragger. If you are the fragger on your team, well, you may be the dodo bird, but your gunny busts. I'm talking it busts astronomically. Your gun skill is so damn good, you're usually the person getting the first knock on your team. But you may end up costing your team a lot. So this person should definitely not be the IGL, and this is another example of why it's important to figure out your role on the team. You should not have the fragger calling out the plays. But a good fragger is probably going to gravitate towards movement legends such as Pathy, Wraith, Ashe, Octane, etc., etc. So if you find yourself as a fragger on your team, you should go with a more offensive style of legend as opposed to a defensive character. Lastly, we have the support. And honestly, before I became an IGL a few seasons ago, I was a support. Support players always clutch up, but you probably play a little passive and behind your teammates a lot. There's nothing wrong with that. You must know your role. Support players also make good co-IGLs because they tend to think before they push fights as opposed to the fragger who pushes everything. And so you'll find that support system, just like the IGL, is a little more cerebral. Great support characters are going to be defensive characters or support legends themselves, such as LOBA, Lifeline, especially Gibby, and characters like that. I know I spent a lot of time on that, but it's really important for you to know that and understand it, especially in gold rank. While these tips are more tailored to gold rank itself, they're still a little more general, and I want to keep it that way. The key takeaways from this video is that you should still be aggressive, but learn how to be passive in certain situations as well. Understanding your role on the team, actively engaging in fights, and learning how to communicate with your team effectively. It's time for you to start becoming a good team player, whether you're solo queuing or not. That's about all I have for you guys for gold. For the next video, I'll see you guys for platinum. Best of luck to you guys. Bam 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 bam. Bam 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 bam. Bam 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 bam. Bam 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 bam